It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey, how's it going? It is Monday, August 31st, and this is the last day of August, and it's the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and support us on Patreon. Today we'll get some coronavirus updates. Also, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe resigns, and the Sunday sermon, the message about the covenant and the evidence or proof. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you why I'm a little bit louder than usual, okay, because this is not my first recording, because I was recording right before this, and it was really good. I thought it was really good too. The only difference was I forgot to unmute my mic. So on the recording, there is nothing on it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to record it again. And here I am recording it again. And I just want to tell you that I'm doing awesome. That's why I'm putting more energy into this podcast while checking and making sure that the mute button is not on. So how are you guys doing? I hope you guys had an inspiring weekend. Just really happy that all of you made it here on the Morning Star Drive. Yesterday's message, awesome message. A great message, moving to hear that God will show us proof that he will fulfill his promises and his covenants with us. Grateful that you've joined us here today. Please like and comment below. We want to hear how you guys are doing. Make your song requests, your questions, and what you guys think about these segments too. Last week, Taco Tuesday and Bubble Talk, we talked about the story of Matthew and also Single and Lonely. So go ahead and check out those two videos out on our Espresso with Sky YouTube channel. Also, we definitely encourage all of you to check out the live Taco Tuesday and Bubble Talks every Tuesday, Thursday at 8 p.m. Malaysia time. It is live streaming on both YouTube and Facebook. Now, yesterday, Sunday edition, awesome interview. It was Aaron Aubrey from America, currently living in Japan as an educator. He speaks fluent Japanese, evangelized in Japan. Guys, you got to check out his interview. He has some inspiring stories. How he came into this history. It's really, really inspiring. All right, so big shout outs too to Jocelyn in Singapore, Heidi and Dabil in America for supporting us here on Patreon. And if you want to support us too, check out the Patreon link in the description. And if you're on SoundCloud, click the blue button on the homepage. We have some cool lecture training content on the page at the moment. All right, let's move on to the featured artist of the day. Who is today's featured artist? It is Francis Han, a Taiwanese. He's Taiwanese, living in New York. He's a jazz pianist. One of my favorite songs from his album, this one is All the Things You Are. We're going to ease into this work week with some awesome jazz from New York. And I do believe a second album is coming on the way, so let's hope and have anticipation for that album too. Second song from the Sumney Boys, Tales of a Longing Heart, their most recent album. And this is my favorite song on the album. It's called Nothing Could Go Wrong. The third song, Kumachang in Japan. This song is Flower of Hope. So guys, let us support our artists from around the world. How? Listen to their tracks, but not only that, we have to pray for them as much as we can. All right, let's sit back, relax, and listen to music from our artists around the world.
could be a fast life or short life, depending how you living. Nothing could go wrong if I'm with you, it's so fulfilling. And if you keep the time, really God walks with you. Not even just walks with you, He will even talk with you. That is right. Been feeling life is different, everything depends on me. And having my own thoughts, that's really a test to me. The more I make myself, the more valuable I become. I have to take action, that's the final outcome. How could I ever forget the moments that we spent together? It's those past memories that will put you together. It's what you do after the mess up that counts. I give glory and thanks even in times of doubt. Don't just say you have the heart but don't do it. You say you wonder, you gotta show Him and prove it. You have to be a life the Lord really remembers. Don't just walk around for no reason, do better. I have the Lord, then nothing could go wrong. I can't be scared to proclaim it, I have to tell the world. Foot on the gas, pushing the pace as I start this race. I have to get my mind straight so I can become great. The time I have now, I really must cherish. It could be gone at any moment, it really just vanish. I know, it's been a while since I sat and even wrote a song. I wonder if my words sound good or even flow at all. And how I wanna share your words to the entire world. Alright, I'm sorry, let me fix myself. If I think of you, I know I will do well. It's times like these, I know I will prevail. Don't just say you have the heart, but don't do it. You say you want, you gotta show Him and prove it. You have to be a life the Lord really remembers. Nothing could go wrong if we do it together.
一輪の花希望という花咲かせよう君がくれた宝物希望という未来に向かって夢がこう明日を照らそう気持ち忘れたまま置き去りのまま太陽はいつでも僕らを照らす心映し出す何があっても変わらないものを教えてくれたはずありのままの気持ちを伝えたいあなたのように生きていたい信じてくれるあなたを信じると決めた愛してくれるあなたを最後まで愛していきたい
And that is Hope of Flower from Kumachang over there in Japan. Hope you guys enjoyed that song. And right before that, we had the Sumney Boys' Tales of a Long and Heart album. That song, my favorite, Nothing Could Go Wrong. And first and foremost, of course, the featured artist of the day, Francis Han, all the way over there in New York. All the Things You Are, jazz pianist. And new album coming out soon, so we're looking forward to that album also. So let's get into what? The coronavirus updates of the day. And of course, it's been an entire weekend, so numbers have gone up extremely a lot, right? So we were at 24 million right before. We're at 25 million cases in the world, 847,000 deaths at 3.36%. And of course, we heard it in the message, 25 million cases, and it was given in the Sunday message too. So it's quite... yeah, the way that it was put is basically we've never even seen that many people gathered in one setting before ever, right? 25 million, and that's how many people that have the virus right now in the world. Across the board, well, today's a little bit different. Of the top 6 countries that have the highest infection rates, cases and deaths, across the board, they're fine. Right, none of them have gone up. None of them have gone up in the mortality rates. But there are 2 countries that went up. Number 1 is the Philippines. It took a big jump this weekend, and also Sweden went up for the first time in maybe a month and a half. So let's take a look at this. The U.S. has 6.1 million cases, 186,000 deaths at 3.04%, slowly moving into the 2% territory. Brazil, 3.8 million cases, 120,000 deaths at 3.13%. India catching up really quickly already at 3.5 million cases, 63,000 deaths at 1.8%. Peru, 639,000 cases, which means they're well ahead, getting ready to go into them. They're the speed at which they're going is they're going to hit 1 million pretty soon. 28,000 deaths at 4.47%. Colombia, 599,000 cases, which means they're right there at 600,000. 19,000 deaths at 3.18%. Argentina, 401,000 cases. They've hit the 400,000 mark. 8,300 deaths at 2.08%. Philippines, they've gone up in the mortality rate, 217,000 cases, 3,500 deaths, 1.62% mortality rate. And Sweden, it was actually a pretty big jump. I think it was like almost 0.3 almost. Sweden is at 6.93% mortality rate. And Belgium is down to 11.69%. They took a big jump down. Let's take a look at the daily infection rate. Daily infection rate, India is at 78,000 cases at 2%. And then the U.S. back up to number 2 at 42,000 cases in a day with 1% growth rate. Brazil, 34,000 cases, 1%. And then we have the bottom 3 are just shifting around everywhere. Peru is now at number 4 with 9,400 cases at 2%. Colombia at 9,300 cases at 2%, and Argentina at 9,200. So they're all within 100 from each other, right? So Argentina's 9,200 cases at 2%, and that's the kind of the coronavirus update we have for the weekend. It was a big weekend for the coronavirus. Got to keep praying for it and understand the situation that we're living in. So it's going to be a special. I guess it's special because it was in the message about last week after Wednesday message. Basically, Sun seems like saying, watch the news. Just got to watch it. And one of the big things that came out, and all of you in Japan already know this, and we already know this from yesterday's message, Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, has resigned with even a year left. He is the longest serving Prime Minister in Japan, in Japan's history. He's 65 years old at the time. And the reason he's stepping down is persistent health problems. And it's pretty amazing because everyone was shocked, even the people that were close to him. But the one thing we do know is reports were already saying that he had 2 visits to the hospital already. So people knew that something was going on. He's resigning in a time where there's so many challenges, especially with the pandemic and the economy. So he sent, I was watching his final goodbyes, his announcement, and he sent his apologies to Japan for leaving at this time. He's been criticized about, when he does his, what do you call it? His announcements and when he does his briefings, he's been criticized because he pre-selects questions that he wants in interviews. But in this last interview, they said it was very different. He had no teleprompter, so everything came from the heart, and he took all questions, right? So they knew that something was different at that time. Those of you who don't know, In 2006, he first became the prime minister, and he stepped down because of the same health issue. But many people thought that for this one here, he would try to stay for the last year. He's been 8 years as the prime minister at the moment. Right now, pandemic and the failed Olympics, these are things that the government still has to handle, and they're being criticized for right now. And yeah, it was very, very surprising, not only to the people close to him, but all the other leaders around the world sending messages of how much they're going to miss him as the prime minister of Japan. His illness is called, I believe, it's something like, what's it called? It's called ulcerative colitis. Like ulcerative colitis. We'll go a little bit more into a little bit later, but he's had this since he was 15 years old. And he never really got to manage it until he hit his mid-50s. And at that time, he put it under control. Then he came back as a prime minister in 2012. And they said that when he got it all under control, he was healthier than his entire entourage. Super fit, traveled longer than any other prime minister before him. He met many leaders, more than any other Japanese prime minister in the past either. He went basically 147 days without break. And they say that this is the reason that kind of made it worse. So kind of when you look at the news that's going around right now, is Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He announced he's retiring or he's stepping down due to the worsening health. And the condition we said is ulcerative colitis. But what kind of disease is this? Ulcerative colitis is a long-term condition that causes like the lining of your colon and rectum to become inflamed and develop tiny open sores or ulcers. That's why I call it ulcerative colitis. And scientists aren't sure what causes this, but there are known risk factors, including like gut infections. There's a family history of this disease. You have to take anti-inflammatory painkillers like ibuprofen, and especially people living in Western nations are at a higher risk. People in Western nations and living in higher latitudes are also at greater risk for this colitis. And most new cases are reported in early adulthood, but some people develop the disease in childhood or in later life, and that's Abe's condition. It began when he was in junior high school at 15 years old, right? So this ulcerative colitis, it causes diarrhea, blood in the stool, abdominal pain, cramps. And basically, if the doctor suspects that you have this condition, you'll be sent to a specialist for an endoscopy of the colon with biopsy to confirm or rule out the disease. So in your lifetime, these symptoms tend to come and go. And the period between flare-ups or remission, it can last for months or even years, right? The period between. So that's basically what happened in 2012. But the symptoms will eventually return, right? So for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the previous flare-up was in 2007, and now it's back here in 2020. So it looks like it's pretty serious right now that he had to resign as prime minister. Some of the legacy of Shinzo Abe, they call it Abenomics. It's his type of fiscal policy, and in his fiscal policy, basically, the fiscal policy. Let's take a look at this. I saw this. So basically his whole role in fiscal policy, the Abenomics, is to increase jobs in the economy by easing monetary policy and flooding the market with notes. And then the banks will finance stimulus packages. So the risks were clear because you can over-leverage the banks or there'll be overconfidence. And what worked in the economic strategy was it promoted good free trade with the with the European Union. But it never really delivered on structural reform, right? So it was supposed to improve productivity, and also he promised to help women shine or do better, but it didn't really work either because most of the women were given like what they never saw big like upticks in paychecks, but it was mainly dead-end careers and poorly paid jobs that became more available to women. And in his policy, it looks like it was mainly the rich that did well more than people who were in the middle class or a little bit lower than that too. So another legacy of Prime Minister Abe was the geography, right? Because geography matters in these countries, and in the neighborhood of Japan, there's a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to China. So when it came to they had to kind of declare themselves as a maritime democratic nation. So it brought nations closer. It brought Japan closer to the UK, India, Australia, and the US. So it is a solid foundation for the future. And there is no obvious successor at the moment, but it is very competitive in Japan, especially inside his party. So elections will most likely take place in mid-September, but they said this candidate has to be chosen by their party, but it has to be endorsed by parliament, and that's why it's very, very contested. So Japan relations are now in question because Abe stepped down, especially with India, Australia, and the US, especially when it comes to countering China's influence. So they're not sure if China will step in and try to take advantage of this weakening leadership. Also, one thing that Abe really wanted to do was he was very strategic when it came to defense, national defense. So he put them in a new direction, especially after World War II. Japan had sanctions; they couldn't make their own army. But he was basically saying that the only people that can secure Japan is themselves. So he set the tone for a new defense during his time as a PM. Went against China. Especially claims about the Senkaku Islands we talked about last week and South China Sea. He loosened the ban on arms exports. And 2015, he tried to push really controversial legislation about national defense, and even troops engaged with allied forces to help them too. So that was quite interesting in 2015. And of course, this upset China, especially because it's the largest trading partner. And Abe he was one of the people that confronted China with trade relations. Korea and China, is it going to affect them? Yeah, like I said before, it's going to be interesting to see whether China tries to exploit this change in this change of leadership, like trying to pushing their territorial claims. Like China could do that, and yeah, even if there's a new person that comes after Prime Minister Abe, whoever that is, China and Japan never really had like best friend like relations, right? They've never been the best of friends. There are a lot of wartime issues in the past, and Abe did a good job, they say, of patching things up to not let the relationship deteriorate. India, US, and Australia, is there still going to be cooperation? And it looks like it because Japan is committed to democracy. And it's interesting to see if the relationship continues to develop between these countries. It could be difficult without Abe because he gets along, well, especially when it comes to the U.S., because he gets along with Trump. And that would also be dependent upon if Trump gets reelected as president also. So it is Abe leaving during the worst economic condition in Japan. And I believe growth has shrunk by like 28% when the pandemic came in. So, and it's kind of ironic because Abe will leave during the worst economic condition when he was the one elected for his economic policies to bring the economy higher, and they're the third largest economy in the world. When the markets heard that Abe was leaving, the Nikkei dropped about a little over 2% when the news came out. And it's quite interesting to see what is going to happen with this news. When you look at South Korea, and this is something that Sun Team talked about yesterday, that the relations did sour a bit, and it's true because in the past, especially, there's something called the GSOMIA, and that is about protecting the Northeast Asian region, and that's between Japan, Korea, and the U.S. And Korea pulled out of this. They pulled out of this agreement, and Japan was very upset with it, and they expressed regret over Korea's move to exit, and they criticized Korea for withdrawing, and that it damages the trust with Japan, especially going against this treaty has been around since 1965, and it was between Japan, U.S., and Korea relations. So Japan did continue to work with the U.S. to keep peace in the region in Northeast Asia. But interesting thing that happened after this was Tokyo removed South Korea from their preferred trading partners. So it does create this grave change in security. So yeah, it is. No one knew why it happened until we heard it in the message. So I hope that all of us we'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later of how religion plays a role in what Sun Team talked about too. So that brings us into a good time where we can have a time of praise. There's going to be 3 songs we're going to sing right now. First one, we heard it in the Sunday message. Great song. Now we are going ahead, just kind of get the blood pumping. Then we'll go into the Word, the Tree of Life, and Let's Overcome the World. So let's praise and give glory to the Holy Trinity together.
Finally, pushing ahead, our new songs move ahead of the world. Those worldly songs are no fading behind us. They're behind, falling even more towards that. God gave the melodies, the Spirit gave the words and lyrics. So I became the singer, and I sing the new songs. The songs of life are the new songs in this new time of life. Heaven's new songs overflow, going ahead of the world. Since you have now become the Trinity's counterparts of love, sing the new songs, sing all the beautiful songs of these times. Sing the new songs, go on and sing along. Everyone sing along for all time, until the world ends. Let's sing these eternal songs, songs of eternal love, now and always. Let's sing the new songs. The songs of life are the new songs in this new time of life. Heaven's new songs overflow, going ahead of the world. Since you have now become the Trinity's counterparts of love, sing the new songs, sing all the beautiful songs of these times. Sing the new songs, go on and sing along. Everyone sing along for all time, until the world ends. Let's sing these eternal songs, songs of eternal love, now and always. Let's sing the new songs.
Let's overcome the world, overcome our hardships and send our fears away. Come from our hearts and sent with the wind. On the wind of the Spirit, let your cares fly. You and I both, we must go on. Our hearts have not changed. Like the waves rising and falling, we may waver and be shaken, nevertheless we will remain on the same path until the end, our destination set. Both you and I, your hand in mine, our hearts as one, we go on as one. We must support, help each other, care for each other as we love and adore only God, the Holy Spirit. We will look up to them, longing for heaven. That's our joy, and this love never rests now and always. Just as time flows, as the waves crash endlessly, let's overcome the world, overcome our hardships and send our fears away. Come from our hearts and sent with the wind. On the wind of the Spirit, let your cares fly. You and I both, we must go on. Our hearts have not changed.
And that is Let's Overcome the World. I hope you guys enjoyed these times of praise. Of course, that second song I haven't heard in a long time. Amen, amen, hallelujah. That's such an amazing, that's an awesome song. I love it. Amen, amen, hallelujah. Oh my gosh. I think I only sing that part of the song. This is so good. All right, so let's move into the word study of the day. We had an amazing Sunday message, and wow. It just kind of goes into the ending of last week after the Wednesday message. Basically, it's like, hey, watch the news. Watch the news, see what happens. And I did talk about on Friday about the pastor of the Sarangjeel Church that resigned from the president of Christian Council of Korea, the person who was like speaking recklessly, and he's also being accused of blasphemy over there in Korea. But the second thing is just mind-blowing is the Japanese Prime Minister resigns, Shinzo Abe. I did talk about it a little bit in the current news, but it's a shocking event. No one in Japan, even those close to him, thought he would resign. Everyone was shocked, right? Even though they knew he went to the hospital twice, everyone thought that he'd be able to pull off at least the next year, right? Just the final year of his term. But he, shockingly, he stepped down. He's gonna continue to do prime minister work until there's a new person elected. But wow, we did talk about the ulcerative colitis. But the big ultimate reason, when we looked in the message, the prayer was about idol worship, Gentiles, these people in leadership positions, right? So I was looking like, well, what religion is this guy? And here's some interesting facts about about idol worship or Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. When he was first coming into office, he promised voters a bright future, especially when it comes to Japan's economy. Okay, and key parts of his conservative base, they wanted him to steer the nation back towards a more traditional thought, a traditional ethos, mixing Shintoism or Shinto myth, patriotism and pride, and also the people will take pride in the ancient imperial line. As interesting as that is, right? So proponents say that such changes are needed to revive the important aspects of Japanese culture that was basically, it's been eradicated since the West or the U.S. occupation after World War II. And it's basically, they wanted him to do this to counter modern materialism. Okay? So critics were all saying that like Abe was kind of trying to mirror the Shinto ideology, which mobilized the masses to fight the war in the name of a divine emperor, right? So the legacy of that war still haunts, the legacy of that war in the past, it still haunts ties between China and South Korea also, and that's even after 70 years. After 70 years, it still haunts Japan, China, and South Korea. So here's an interesting quote from Yutaka Yuzawa. He's a director of the Shinto Association of Spiritual Leadership, the SAS. And he basically says, we really have trust in him, referring to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He is person in charge of more the political arm of the Association of Shinto Shrines. And this group counts Abe as a member, and he is one of a network of overlapping organizations sharing a similar agenda. And they basically said that the Prime Minister's views are extremely close to the Shinto way of thinking. This is what the Yuzawa told Reuters in an interview. So this is quite interesting to see that that Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, was very much going towards more of a Shinto ideology and Shintoism. Right, so when I was just going over this, like, wow, it's so true what Sunsim was talking about, and I really, really hope that with a lot of countries like, say, Israel and America, Brazil, Russia, I hope there will be a lot of changes that moves people more towards those that believe and love in God, right? Love God more than anything else. So that was a big part of the message that really shocked me when I did a little bit more research. I really liked when there was more insight in what's in Noah's mind after the flood. I really enjoyed this part because I never really thought about this, that how terrified Noah must have been to see such a massive destruction, right? So much death, so much calamity. And then after you think about it, he was alone. It was just him and his family, everything destroyed because the extent of the flood was so huge. And honestly, there's nothing to be afraid of because everything that was dangerous was basically dead and gone. And as you know, Sunsim's quiz was, hey, what was the only thing that survived? It was a fish, obviously, right? I actually called fish out, but you don't have to believe me, but I thought that in my heart. I really did, right? But the interesting thing was when he talked about how terrified he was because of the extent of that damage. It's almost like seeing trauma, right? But God comforted Noah and told him he would never do anything like that huge, right? Not a judgment that big again. And then it goes into this week's message because it's about the sign that was shown, which was the rainbow, right? It was a sign of proof and evidence that God would keep his covenant and keep his promise, right? That's the sign of the rainbow. And it was cool just seeing the rainbow in Korea, and then seeing other photos of it in Japan and Taiwan, which I thought was quite amazing too. It totally tied in with the story of how he got the message, and it was about the golf cart where the secretary or the person, the administrative assistant that Sunsim has, is always with him, but he couldn't find her, and she's near the bathroom, and he's like waiting for her, but she's not going in, and she's just kind of checking around the car. That Sunsim went all the way over there and says, hey, what's going on? And she's like, it doesn't work. And what's the cool part about this is it was one of those I told you so moments. Like Sunsim said, hey, you should use another cart. That one's old, right? You use another cart instead. But she didn't. And Sunsim could have easily said, I told you so. But then he says, after seeing, he says, you don't need to be upset when things don't work out because there's a will. Because right after that, he turns to look towards Mount Tedun, and what does he see? He sees that amazing, beautifully bright and colorful rainbow. And the message was, yay, come on, watch what you guys say. Don't be too harsh with what you say, right? Don't be upset when things don't work out. Why? Because there's a will. There's something that we don't see. There really, really is, right? Even for me right now, for those of you who don't know, only in Malaysia is we have this movement, this lockdown that's going on right now in Malaysia, and we had an announcement like on Saturday, and they basically said they're pushing the entire this lockdown will go all the way to the end of the year, December 31st. So I'm like, whoa, that's crazy, right? So for me, I'm like, man, that changes a lot of things, and now I'm wondering what's going to happen to my visa. Can I stay? Do I have to go? And it's something that I looked at, and God is like, hey, don't be so upset. Don't worry if things don't work out. There's a will for it. There is a will. It's like, oh, okay. So, even if you have every reason to be, you never know, right? So don't be upset. Things are going to work out. There is a will for them, and you just got to find it, right? So I was really, really happy about that part of the message. And it was kind of a side message. It wasn't even the main one about God's covenant. But I just really, really thought that, yeah, it really fit to my time right now. Am I leaving? Am I going? Do I have to go back to Canada? What do I have to do, kind of thing, right? So, that part for myself, because I'm in that situation, it was really comforting. The righteous suffer with the wicked, but are protected and will not die. And that was shown from the story of Noah, and also from the stories of people not getting coronavirus, even though they've been going around and meeting people and such too. Because some people, they're working. You can't just stop working. You have to meet people. And one thing that we're supposed to do is think back of the covenant between us and God. Think back of the promises God has kept for you. And this is the week that we have to have some testimonies. This is the week that we have to figure out, what are the things that God has done for me? What has God done for me this week? And if we can figure this out, if we can start thinking about them, you guys, don't be afraid. Send me those stories so I can share them with everyone here on the Morning Star Drive for the rest of the week, on Tuesday to Friday. I'm sure there's tons of things where you realize, wow, God really, really kept his promise, right? So, what are the signs? There are many signs, or you could say the proofs or the evidence that God will keep his covenant and his promises with us. I like the one we talked about, the wedding ring. The symbol of the wedding is the ring itself, right? The marriage, the symbol of it is the wedding ring. So you have to value that ring. Just as Sunstein really values the rocks and trees that he's been given, the Holy Sun Rock, Big Face Rock, the Seal Rock, the Toad Rock, all of them have a story, and he really, really values them. How do we know? He values them so much to the point that we're sick of the story, because we hear it like every week for like 17 weeks straight. We're like, why does he keep talking about this? But we realize this is how thankful and grateful he is. He really, really is. It's so much more than us, because we get sick of it already, right? We're like, oh my gosh, it's like 9 weeks in a row he talks about the same story over and over again. But this is how thankful and how much he values what God gives him, right? And also through dreams, natural signs like a rainbow. The one that really hit me was when he said about changing your name, because, my name got changed too. Or my name was changed too, like the Korean name. The Korean name is Jung Chungil. Chun is like Chungguk or heaven. Gil means road, right? And I got this in 2015 during a tour when Pastor Jonah was in America and Canada. And basically, the meaning of the name is like, and this is kind of burdensome though, but he's like, the meaning of the name is basically like John the Baptist, as in, literally it means heaven's road, but the meaning that is behind it that was given to this name is the one who prepares the way for the Lord. So it's like the John the Baptist, right? So it's something that we have to fulfill it. We need to be the ones that fulfill our names, and that name is a sign too, right? So behind this name, I was thinking to myself, behind this name, given this name to me, there are many promises and covenants that God has given to me, and the name given to me is a sign. And because of that, I have to keep and make sure that my name, I keep the meaning of my name too. Yeah, just great message. I hope that more than anything else, it's kind of something you have to put into action this week, especially when it comes to us thinking about what promises has God done for us that he's fulfilled already, and even more so, what are the promises that we could be looking forward to this week, right? This week, there could be some covenants that are fulfilled, and I think that would be quite amazing also. So I hope that, guys, it's the 31st, tomorrow, September, it's a new month. September is the greatest month in the year. Okay, well, it's not the greatest, but only to me. It's because I was born in September. Yay! Either way. So I hope that you guys find lots of different things, lots of different ways that we can understand the message more deeply. And I hope that we'll be those that will really understand how much God is loving us and giving us the signs that we need, right? Yeah, I'm still blown away by the Japan Prime Minister resigning, and hearing Sunstein's prayer and why he prayed for this. That's even more mind-blowing. And then finding out, yeah, just wow, it's so crazy when I think about it. So I hope you guys too, that we can be those that really testify and know what is happening in the world and how the Lord's prayer is changing everything. Okay, so this brings us into a time of the song of choice for the day, and it is a request all the way over in Malaysia from Yongmin, and the song is called Forever and Ever Amen, and it was originally written by Paul Overstreet. And there's a reason I'm telling you this guy's name. I usually don't talk about the songwriter. Paul Overstreet is a songwriter that originally wrote this song, and it was originally sung by Randy Travis in 1987, and it won the Grammy for Best Country Song. And it's a great song about how you will love and stay together with God. And the cover today that Yongmin has requested is from Music Travel Love. It's a YouTube channel originally from a group called The Moffats, right? And it's featuring Summer Overstreet. And you can tell the last name. This is the daughter of Paul Overstreet who wrote this song. So it's quite amazing how it's come full circle. Basically, all of her brothers and sisters, Summer's brothers and sisters, they're all like country artists, right? They're all musicians. And their father is the one that wrote this song. So I hope all of us here too, will enjoy this song, Forever and Ever, Amen.
1, 2, 3, 4. You may think that I'm talking foolish. You've heard that I'm wild and I'm free. You may wonder how I can promise you now there's a love that I feel for you always will be. You're not just time that I'm killing. I'm no longer one of those guys. As sure as I live, oh, this love that I give is gonna be yours until the day that I die. Oh, baby, I'm gonna love you forever, forever and ever. Amen. As long as old men sit and talk about the weather, as long as older women sit and talk about old men. If you wonder how long I'll be faithful, I'd be happy to tell you again. Oh, darling, I'm gonna love you forever and ever. Forever and ever, amen.
They say time takes its toll on the body, makes a young man's brown hair turn gray. Well, honey, I don't care. I ain't in love with your hair. And if it all fell out, well, I love you anyway.
Oh, they say time takes its toll on a memory, makes people forget things they do. It's easy to see, oh, it's happening to me, 'cause I've already forgotten every woman but you. Oh, darling, I'm gonna love you forever, forever and ever, amen. As long as old men sit and talk about the weather,
As long as old women sit and talk about old men.
and if you wonder how long I'll be faithful, oh, just listen to how the song ends. Oh, darling, I'm gonna
And that is Forever and Ever, Amen. That's from Music Travel Love featuring Summer Overstreet, who is the daughter of the person who wrote that song. That's way over from 1987, right? Originally sung by Randy Travis. Hope you guys really enjoyed that song. That song, it's kind of religious because it has the word amen in it. But it's a love song for him and his wife. Right, so I really hope that we will understand that this is also a love song between us and God and us and the Lord. All right, so what does that mean? It's time for the story of the day, and we're going to continue with the story of David. Okay, we're going to continue with the story with David, and I just want to make sure that everyone gets a little bit more acquainted with the stories in the Bible. The last time we talked about David all the way into the story of Goliath, and then we're going to continue what happens right after Goliath is defeated. So when David overcame Goliath in battle and he was brought to King Saul's palace to be rewarded, he met Jonathan, the son of King Saul, for the first time. And at that moment, their love and respect for each other was first founded. And when David finished speaking with Saul, Jonathan's soul became bound with David's, and they say Jonathan loved David as himself. And the bond between the two proved itself even in the most difficult of times. Later on, King Saul began to fear that David wanted his throne and sought to kill him. Despite knowing that David posed a potential threat to his place in line to the crown, Jonathan still loved David and protected him from his father's attempts to have him killed. So then what happens next? King Saul selects David to be a warrior in his army. And David's success was so great, there's a verse that says, when the troops came home, David returned from killing the Philistines. The women of all the towns of Israel came out, and they sang and danced, and they chanted, Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. King Saul started to grow envious of David's glory and kept a watchful and jealous eye on David. King Saul then after selecting David as the warrior to his army, he became envious. What happens next? God continued to grant David much success in battles, and King Saul started to fear that David's fame and power would one day help him usurp the throne. And this led to a war between the two men. Then, it started when David was playing the harp for the king. And a cloud of fear and anger suddenly fell upon King Saul, and he grabbed hold of his spear and threw it at David. But by divine intervention, David managed to escape. David fled south to the mountains of Judah, his home. He needed food and weapons, and he obtained these from the city of Nob. At that time, Nob was a holy place, distinguished because it housed the tabernacle and the priests. David was taken in and cared for by Ahimelech and his fellow priests. This provided David with the opportunity to stock up on food and weapons. During his stay, he was seen by Doeg the Edomite, who was a servant of King Saul. Fearing this, David escaped to the city of Gath, and then sought refuge in one of the caves near Adullam, in the plains of Judah. It was a secure retreat, and David's brothers and all his father's household came to him. His solitary abode was soon known, and he was joined by many who were in distress or in debt or had any other reason to be discontented. Doeg the Edomite related news of David's whereabouts to the king. King Saul embarked on a quest to hunt down and kill David. There were 2 times during this hunt when King Saul was at the mercy of David, and instead of taking advantage of the situation and killing the king, David spared his life, as he dared not to lay his hand upon God's anointed one. it was only after David spared his life for the second time that King Saul finally retreated and let David be. King Saul was then waging a mighty war against the Philistines. David was in Ziklag, where he had retreated in fear that King Saul would change his mind and hunt him again. When he heard that Saul and his son Jonathan had died in battle, David sincerely mourned the death of Saul and Jonathan and the defeat of Israel. After the death of Saul, David saw that the time had come for him to emerge from exile and take over the leadership of his people. He left Ziklag and proceeded to the ancient city of Hebron in Judah. There the people of Judah gathered and anointed him king. In the prime of his life, he was 30 years old. David was wise in counsel, prompt in action, God-fearing in earnest, and the people recognized him as the most suitable candidate for the throne in those troubled times. King David's ascension to the throne did not go unprotested. Abner, previously a general in King Saul's army, felt that the crown should remain in the family of King Saul. However, his forces were beaten swiftly, and he had no choice but to acknowledge the reality of David being king over all of Israel. The people swarmed to Hebron to pay homage to their beloved king and to anoint him publicly. So this occasion turned into a great national celebration. It lasted for 3 days, and in time, the capital moved from Hebron to Jerusalem. And this is the story of King David up to the point he is anointed king. And of course, there is still much more to learn about King David, and I hope that everyone here will stay tuned and listen more as we'll finish the story of David this week. All right, what does that mean? It means that it's already over. The time of the Monday podcast on the Morningstar Drive 117.8 is over. I hope you guys had an amazing time together and have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on Tuesday.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like